The last area I want to look at is surrender to a higher power. So, William James, in this wonderful book, The Varieties of Religious Experience, one of the things he was very interested in was how people can find radical healing in their lives by surrendering to a higher power, the complete opposite of self-help, the complete opposite of the Greek philosophy model, which is use your reason to pull yourself up and heal yourself, and you can do it, you can improve yourself. But that doesn't always work. And instead, sometimes some people find healing completely the opposite way, by saying, I can't do it anymore. If there's something up there, I need your help now, because I can't do it. So the surrender of the self, surrender of power and autonomy and control. And James saw that often that seemed to work. People did find healing and power and kind of the ability to change when they surrendered control, paradoxically. One example, famous example, is Bill Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. He tried many different techniques to overcome his chronic alcoholism. It didn't work. And finally, he fell to his knees in a hotel room and said, okay, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I'm finished. If there's something up there, help me. Otherwise, that's it. I give up. And he had a full-on ecstatic experience. He saw a kind of white light. He felt the room fill with a kind of noise and wind. It was like something from the Old Testament. And he felt reborn. He felt like able to step out from his habitual narrative, I'm Bill, I'm an alcoholic, and not be that, and be something else. He open to the possibility of a different kind of story. So it's interesting, if you look at cultures around the world, there are places of surrender, places they go to surrender to God in some form or other. And in many countries, that's what mental health care is. There is no psychiatrist around, there are no therapists around. If you have an emotional problem, you go for faith healing in some form or other. And it often seems to work. So I was interested in this. The reason I'm interested in this whole area, one of them is having had social anxiety and post-traumatic stress when I was a teenager, I found a lot of healing through a near-death experience, which happened to me when I was 24, where having tried everything to get better through university and so on, I was on a skiing holiday in Norway with my family, and I went through a fence on the first day on the side of a mountain and fell off this kind of cliff and fell 30 feet or so and broke my leg and banged my head and was transported somewhere else, into a kind of white light, and felt totally healed and loved and okay. And this lasted about 2 minutes, I think, because then my uncle skied up and said, oh my God, you're covered in blood. And it kind of lasted for a while. It helped me on this path to healing. And I didn't know what the hell that was. Or how could I get it again? Because I felt so great. And over the years, the old patterns of anxiety and depression would come back. So I was like, that felt like I connected to some kind of loving God thing. And I wondered if I could connect to that again. And it was something deeper than rational Greek philosophy. Greek philosophy massively helped me too. But what was that experience? So while I was researching this book, I thought, well, it sounds a bit like kind of the Holy Spirit. So maybe I could find that in Christianity. I rejected Christianity when I was about 12. Thought it was, really silly. But I wanted to find out. I met some people who ran the Alpha course. Is anyone here been on that? Hands up if you've been on that. No shame here, no judgment. Okay, 2 people there. So the Alpha course is it's a kind of course that millions of people have taken. And it's like a course in ecstatic Christianity. You meet up with people, a group of about 15 or so, every Thursday evening, and you talk a little bit about your stories. You open up to each other. It's a very nice kind of group therapy type thing. And they also tell, they get you to pray for each other. And then they try to kind of help you towards an ecstatic encounter with Jesus. So you go on an Alpha weekend and they say, we're going to teach you this prayer, come Holy Spirit. Well, that's all you have to do. invite the Holy Spirit in. So it's this model of the self as porous. We can invite the Holy Spirit in, and then we'll be healed and supported and carried. So I went, I loved the group kind of aspect, really liked the people on the group. How nice to kind of meet up regularly with a group of people and just check in with each other. How nice to pray for each other as well, just wish well to each other. So I went on the weekend and I said, the prayer, "Come Holy Spirit." And then I opened my eyes and the vicar was standing next to me with a grin. And he said, "Did anything happen? Did you feel anything?" And I was like, not really. I felt a bit wobbly, but nothing much, nothing very major. Other people around me were definitely having kind of powerful experiences. People were in tears. People were kind of, but I didn't really get anything. So I was a bit disappointed. I was like, what, is God not into me? What's going on? So I carried on researching, and I researched about different kind of ecstatic Christian movements, like the Welsh revival of 1904, where 10% of the population of Wales converted to Christianity and alcoholism levels plummeted. And I went to Wales, and I went to this kind of retreat called Brennan in Pembrokeshire, which is known as being a very ecstatic place where miracles were constantly happening. And I went on their summer retreat. And we were in a church in the countryside in Pembrokeshire, and I was surrounded by ecstatic pensioners. And it was full on, and people were fainting, screaming, exorcisms, all this kind of stuff. It was the worst holiday ever. And then I retreat to my hotel room and read all these books about the kind of, the history of these kinds of movements, the Quakers, Pentecostalists, and so on. And yet, over the days, it kind of, they were pretty nice people there. They were so friendly. And I did really want to connect to whatever it was that I'd had that experience of, like to connect to that God of love. And at some point, I think on the last day, I was right at the back of the church, and I said something to myself like, okay, if there's something there, I surrender to you. And I choose to I said, I dedicate myself to you. And then something happened. So I felt this kind of force hit me and almost knocked me back like that. Do you remember the vase I showed of the Greek follower of Dionysus with their head back like that? It was a bit like that. And I felt something take my breath away. Like it took my breath away. And I felt this, this kind of sense of joy and also just surprise. Because a bit of my rational mind was watching going, what the fuck is this? And it lasted for about an hour, just like this. You can imagine I was zapped by a UFO or something. And I went to get some water and I saw my pupils were dilated, like when I was raving. I was like, that's interesting. So it was like this kind of autonomic reaction. And I was like, wow, God. Hey, what does that prove? And the vicar said at the front, does anyone here want to dedicate their life to Jesus today? Which is a very strange thing to ask, because they were all totally committed Christian pensioners. But at the back, I raised my hand. I don't think he even saw, but the old people around me did. So I was suddenly hugged by loads of these ecstatic pensioners. This sweet old man said to me, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, it doesn't matter, you're going to heaven now. So I was like, I've still got in my wallet a card from one of the sweet old ladies that she gave to me, just saying, good luck on your journey. So I drove back to London, and my heart was on fire. And I felt, it's true, there is a God of love, and he loves me. And I announced on my blog the next week, my blog, which is mainly kind of skeptics, stoics, rationalists, I said, I found Jesus. And 50% unsubscribed immediately. I met the publishers of my first book, and they said, have you thought about your second book? What would you like to write about? I said, Jesus! And I didn't do a deal with them. And, but then over the weeks, the high kind of died down. That's what happens. That for about 4 weeks, I was incredibly happy. I was full of love. I went to the dentist to have some wisdom teeth removed, and the dentist said, you seem so happy, what's going on? But it died down. And some of the cultural issues I had with Christianity kind of came back. about, you know, sexual ethics, and rationality kicked in. And I started to read the Bible. I really didn't like the Bible. And I had all these, you know, these skeptical doubts, and it just kind of died down. It was like a marriage in Vegas. And I was like, what have I done? This doesn't make sense to me. But I've kind of declared that I am a Christian now. Fuck, what's this book going to be about? And I wondered what had happened to me then in that experience. And I went to interview, oh, sorry, that's me in the church. I had this kind of Blues Brothers type experience at the back of the church. So I went to, and one of the people I interviewed when I was thinking about this was Darren Brown, who'd grown up a Pentecostalist, very into it when he was a teenager, very into the kind of ecstatic Christianity, but then had lost his faith at university. And I said to him, what do you think that was? Was that just kind of hypnosis? Something about the crowd and primed by the vicar, that it was some kind of hypnotic induction which led to this powerful thing? And he said, well, we don't really know exactly what hypnosis is, for one thing. We don't know if people are just going along with a kind of group dynamic, or people are really going into some altered state of consciousness, some difficult neurological state. But he says, we do know that it often kind of works for people. It often leads to healing. And he found this in that show. Did anyone see the show Miracle? So the second half of the show, he pretends to be a Pentecostal preacher. And he invites people up on stage. And it's all kind of, he goes, I'm going to heal you. I'm going to cast out the demons. The Lord is going to come upon you. You can imagine the audience, Darren Brown people, like cynical, like Londoners. And they would kind of queue up on stage, come on stage. And the weird thing was, like, they would pass out. They would start shaking. So if you looked at Twitter, you know, after one of his shows, it was full of accounts of people who said they'd actually found healing. So this guy says, didn't get to ask my question, Darren Brown, but 10 months after being on stage at Miracle, my dad doesn't feel the chronic pain in his leg. Faye Johnson says, just watching Darren Brown and reliving when I saw it live, you healed the pain in my right foot and my dad's too. Thank you. And this guy says, my legs started to buckle with the mass healing and a weird sensation spread. I wet myself. So that's interesting, isn't it? Like, you know, the actual kind of healing can happen. So what's going on there? And I went to Nicky Gumbel, who's the vicar who runs the Alpha course. And I said to him, don't you think this is just hypnosis? When you say on the Alpha course, you may feel a kind of tingling or a warmth, you may feel like something carrying you, may feel a kind of breeze. Isn't this just a form of hypnotic induction? And he says he's asked himself the same question. And when he was a skeptic, he thought maybe this is just hypnosis. And he said, we don't entirely know with ecstatic experiences in Christianity. Like, he said there are three things it could be, any ecstatic experience in Christianity. It could be psychology, just kind of group dynamics or expectation. It could be the devil, or it could be God. And we don't quite know. And it's mysterious. And even in the church, people get freaked out when mass ecstatic moments happen. So HGB, where he works, was very ecstatic in the 80s. You know, the people would, filled with like what they called holy laughter. The whole congregation would be like cracking up. Nicky Gumbel is rather, you know, stiff public school barrister. He had to be carried out of the church catatonic because he'd passed out back in the 80s. So he says, you know, so a lot of people thought this isn't right, this is freaky, this is demonic in the church. And he said, we don't entirely know, but what matters is the fruit. We don't know the roots, we don't know where these things come from for sure, we don't definitely know. But we can see, does it transform their lives for the better? Does it lead to people being freed from alcoholism, to marriages being saved? Does it lead to them becoming a better person in their society? That's a fascinating answer, really, from him, because it's exactly the answer that William James gave. He said as well, like, when you look at ecstatic experiences, we can't know the roots, we can just know the fruit. Does it make people feel better? Not just feel better, does it make them better people? And often it does. So it seems to be this kind of model again, similar kind of model for these ecstatic experiences in faith healing, which is that people seem to go into some kind of, they lower the threshold of consciousness, go into some kind of subconscious state. And William James said, We don't know if it's just the subconscious and some kind of auto-suggestion that's leading to healing, or if it's the subconscious and God. He said, if there is a mechanism through which God operates on humans, it's probably through the trapdoor of the subconscious. So it may be just the subconscious, or maybe subconscious and God or spirit in some form. So, a new scientific consensus is emerging, which is that ecstatic experiences are not always pathological, that they're often good for us. They're quite common, happen to lots of people, not weird, and they often lead to good outcomes, to people feeling healthier, more connected, more sense of meaning in their life. But there's a question, you know, that's the very pragmatic analysis of ecstasy. There's still the question, what does it tell us about reality? Is this all just auto-suggestion? Or is this all just hypnosis? Is this all just cultural projection, smoke and mirrors? Or are we really connecting to some kind of spiritual reality that's transpersonal, that's beyond the human? And if so, what is the nature of that reality? And that is still an open question.